Yo, what's going on? Mike from Mike Talk Sports. So Bryce Young just got measured at the NFL Combine. He's weighing in at about 204 pounds, and he's about 5'10" and 1/8 inches. Let me tell you guys how his height and his weight will affect his NFL career. So just to preface, I'm a big Arizona Cardinals fan. I've watched every single game of Kyler Murray's career, not only dating back to his NFL days, but dating back to his Texas A&M days and his Oklahoma days. So in my opinion, I'm pretty well gauged and versed in the small quarterback market. I'm pretty good at identifying the strengths and weaknesses of a small quarterback because Kyler Murray, surprisingly enough, kind of had the same exact measurables, about 5'10" and about 200 pounds. So one thing that stands out compared to Kyler Murray and Bryce Young right away is Kyler Murray has an incredible ability of not getting hit. He's so incredible of when he's about to get hit, he gets himself in a position on the ground, which is not indicative of taking a big blow. It's not indicative of your head bouncing off of the cement that's basically under the turf. That's so vital for your head not to bounce up against the turf when you're getting hit. Kyler Murray's really good at that. Kyler Murray's just really good at being shifty and explosive and having a low center of gravity and just avoiding those big hits. That is not a trait Bryce Young sadly shares. Bryce Young gets hit a lot, guys. Does Bryce Young get hit as much as Tua Tagovailoa did at Alabama? Absolutely not. You watch Tua Tagovailoa at Alabama and you go, oh my God, this guy is never ever going to stay healthy in the pros. I don't really care that Tua Tagovailoa got injured in college. I don't really care that Bryce Young had an injury to his shoulder in college. I don't care if they had a perfect record in terms of injury. I don't care if they had just injuries every single game. It's their play style. It's how their play style is not indicative of being healthy in the NFL. Again, like I just said, Tua Tagovailoa is more of an extreme case of this. You watch Tua Tagovailoa's first appearance in college football. He came in at halftime of the national championship game. Guys, rewatch that second half of the national championship game. Tua Tagovailoa got absolutely laid out every single play. Not only did it display great leadership, great heart from him, but it kind of displayed a negative going on to the NFL level. Again, people really look at that national championship performance from Tua when his star was born, but to me, that was the beginning of the end of his career in terms of the injuries piling up. I really look at that Tennessee game that Alabama played this year, and I look at it and go, man, Bryce Young got hit so much in that game. Bryce Young is a guy who he's not going to throw the ball until the defender's right there on him. He's going to hold on to the ball as long as possible before he can make a play. Now, he's not very mistake prone, and I'm not going to be really diving into his positives and negatives as an NFL quarterback and projecting him into the next level. At this point in this very video, I'm just going to be talking about his size concerns going into the NFL. But again, something he does not have to his advantage is being able to not take big hits. That Tennessee game is a great example of that. When he hits the ground, he usually is hitting his shoulder really hard, which again is why we've seen a shoulder injury from Bryce Young. A shoulder injury from quarterbacks is very common in football because that's where you're really falling. That's where your fall is being cushioned. It's your shoulder. That's really where you fall the majority of the time. So Bryce Young, he really needs to get better at falling properly. We saw Tua Tagovailoa talk about he's doing jiu-jitsu this offseason to really learn how to fall properly. I think for Bryce Young, that wouldn't be such a terrible idea to indulge on. To me, it's not even really about him packing on weight at this point, increasing his frame. It's just learning how to not take hits at the next level, getting that ball out extremely quickly, just increasing your processor, pre-snap and post-snap processor to be able to be very decisive with the football, really knowing where your boundaries are. It's so wide open in college football, and sometimes it's hard to get to the sideline depending on where you are in the field. That's something that I think Bryce Young is going to get better at, getting to the boundaries, getting to the sideline, going out of bounds, and really just minimizing the hits he's going to be taking. So transitioning from that conversation into the kind of football X's and O's conversation when looking at the strengths and weaknesses of a shorter quarterback, the strengths, of course, are shiftiness. It's really that agility, and it's so hard to touch guys like Kyler Murray. Sometimes Kyler Murray could literally play two-hand touch football out there and still succeed because of how hard it is to get get your hands on a guy who's that small, that fast, that shifty, that agile. I see Bryce Young having a lot of similar positives as a small quarterback to Kyler Murray. I think that's really going to help him navigate inside of the pocket at the next level. But looking at some negatives, the overarching negative that small quarterbacks have that Kyler Murray really struggles with is something that really wasn't a concern at Alabama for Bryce Young on his tape, but I think it is something that is going to be a bit of a transition for him at the NFL level, and that's straight up just throwing over the middle of the field. Shorter quarterbacks really struggle with those mesh concepts, those shallow zones where you're really trying to throw over the middle of the field at that 3-yard to 8-yard mark, really hitting those digs over the middle of the field. Those routes that guys like Tom Brady and Jimmy Garoppolo have made a career out of, where they could kind of hitch up into the pocket, be those tall statues in the pocket and just throw over the offensive line, throw over the linebackers and make a strike over the middle of the field. That's something that Bryce Young immediately in the NFL is not going to be able to do. He's going to have to be able to even trust his passing lanes through his offensive linemen even more, just develop even more touch on his ball, but he already has great touch on his ball. So that's something that I think he's going to get to an adequate level at the NFL. But do I ever think Bryce Young is going to be a top 10 thrower of the football over the middle of the field in the NFL? I don't. But I think if he can really master the deeper passing concepts, which he's already very proficient at, if he can master concepts that are outside of the numbers, if he can get really good at the short game in terms of out routes, stick routes on the outside, then I think Bryce Young will be just fine. Again, am I a little bit concerned about injuries going into the NFL for Bryce Young? I am. He just needs to minimize those hits.